Gosh, it's one of my favorite stories. She was about 9 years old, and she came up to me and said she wanted to go visit her grandma. She wanted us all to take a big family vacation to go see grandma. The thought of going to visit grandma isn't an inexpensive journey. There's 6 of us in our family. Everybody's now over the age of 2, which means 6 plane tickets to go across the country. And I kind of just laid it down like, sorry, babe, we just don't have the money. You're going to have to get a job. And I wasn't serious. That's just one of those things I feel like you say when you're kind of a snarky mom, like, get a job. And it was so cute because she thought about it for a second and was like, okay, what can I do? Like, I'll work. And I was like, oh, shoot. Like, now what do I do?
Welcome to Spark Joy, the podcast dedicated to celebrating the KonMari method and the transformative power of surrounding yourself with joy and letting go of all the rest. With your hosts and certified KonMari consultants, Kristen Ivy and Karen Sochi. And now, here's the show.
Our guest today is Meg Brunson. Meg is a multi-passionate mama living in Phoenix, Arizona with her husband and 4 young daughters. She's a serial entrepreneur and a former Facebook employee, and she's striving to provide a better life for her family through entrepreneurship. She's the founder of EIEIO Marketing, the host of FamilyPreneur Podcast, and recently helped her 10-year-old launch her first business. Hi, Meg. Welcome to the show.
Welcome, Meg.
Thank you.
Meg, wow, you have so much going on. It is like hard to know where to even start. You have a blog, a podcast, a business that manages social media advertising for companies. You run an online community. You edit another blog, and you are a mom to 4 young ladies. How did all of this happen?
Well, it's funny how things just kind of roll out and change. I've always been entrepreneurial at heart. I think my first, side hustle was in college. And then I kept a side hustle throughout my life. Whatever it was changed based on, what I was passionate about or what I was interested in at any given moment. But I always had my full-time job and then some sort of a part-time side hustle where I was just trying to explore what I was passionate about and make a little extra money, let's be honest. So I always had something there. When I was pregnant with my 3rd child, I had some serious health issues and I ended up needing to be hospitalized, like near-death type health issues. It was kind of traumatic. And I told my husband, I'm done. And just like that, I didn't go back to work. And I said, I'm going to make entrepreneurship work because life's too short. And I want more time. I want more freedom. I want to enjoy, the life that I have and the family that I have. And he supported me 100%. He actually worked 2 jobs for a while, which allowed me to find my way a little bit and begin to bring in some income. Then we, welcomed a 4th child, and I actually went to Facebook after the birth of my 4th child. I stayed there for about a year, but the job was super cool, and that's why I took it, right? Because it's Facebook. I mean, who doesn't want to work at Facebook?
Sure, absolutely.
So I took the job because it seemed like it would be amazing. It was in marketing, which is something I had been it had been a niche that I was working in for a really long time, and I really love marketing. So I went for it, and it was just as cool as I imagined it would be. But the thing that didn't change was the fact that I still had this family. I lost my dad when I was really young. So that's one of those triggers for me that I really want to make sure that I'm able to spend time with my kids and meet all of their needs. And it got to the point where I was running out of time. As cool as Facebook is, it's still a business, and you still have, sick time and vacation time. And if you don't have that left, then you got to go to work. And I didn't want to miss the school plays or the field trips or things of that sort. So I decided to return home and jump back in with 2 feet into this entrepreneurial world that I had gotten used to before, knowing that I'd get used to it again. And that's kind of the condensed version.
That's awesome. Wow. And speaking of your family, your 10-year-old daughter, Kiki, she has her own website. How cool is that? Story time with Kiki. So cute. Did she come up with that idea, or did you help her kind of make that vision a reality?
Gosh, it's one of my favorite stories. She was about 9 years old, and she came up to me and said she wanted to go visit her grandma. She wanted us all to take a big family vacation to go see grandma. Well, we used to live not together like in the same house, but together in the same area. We're from Rochester, New York, and we've since moved across the country. We're now in Phoenix, Arizona, and grandma actually moved too. She's down in South Carolina. So the thought of going to visit grandma isn't an inexpensive journey. There's 6 of us in our family. Everybody's now over the age of 2, which means 6 plane tickets to go across the country. And I kind of just laid it down like, sorry, babe, we just don't have the money. You're going to have to get a job. And I wasn't serious. That's just one of those things I feel like you say when you're kind of a snarky mom, like, get a job. And it was so cute because she thought about it for a second and was like, okay, what can I do? Like, I'll work. And I was like, oh, shoot. Like, now what do I do? Like, I don't want to tell her, well, you can't get a job, because I really want to encourage, I don't like using can't, I guess is a better way to say it. Like, I want to give her something that she could do, something she could strive for. And coming from New York, the common things that I feel like we did as kids, like myself, shoveling driveways. But there's no snow here in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Mowing lawns, but there's no grass here either. It was like all the typical, even a lemonade stand, it gets to be like 120 degrees here in the summer. I can't send her out there with lemonade. Even with ice cubes, it's going to be hot. So I felt like we had to think outside the box. And I explained to her, when it comes to my entrepreneurship and how adults figure out what they want to do, the first step is to identify what you're an expert in. There's something, everybody has marketable skills. So what are you an expert in? And then how can you monetize it? And obviously I didn't use exactly those words. I broke it down a little bit for her. And we brainstormed a little bit. She wrote down, all the things she was good at. And ultimately the thing that she decided she was an expert in was being a big sister. And I was like, okay, well, that's good. But like, you're not old enough to babysit. We had to figure out what she could monetize. So we broke it down further and said, what kind of tasks do you do as a big sister that help other people? What helps your sisters and what helps us as parents? And ultimately, we came down to reading. That's the number one way she helps us, because she reads to her sisters, which entertains her sisters. I mean, they love to be read to, obviously. All kids do, I think. And it gives her an opportunity to, just really develop a relationship with them, reading with them, teaching them. But it also gives my husband and I a break. We've got 4 kids. We're always playing with somebody or reading to somebody or making somebody a snack. It gives us a chance to do something else if she's reading, to them. So that's how she decided that reading would be the focus of her business. And then we just approached ways to monetize it. And right now she's using Amazon affiliate links, and she's selling books from a direct sales company.
Wow.
And again, it's modified. She is only 10, and it's also important that she do her homework and play with her friends. So it's not like she's really pushing this business like most adults would, but she has her little business cards, and she goes live on Facebook from time to time and tells people about her favorite stories. And it's really teaching her, I feel, some important skills. And she's a kiddo that's always been bright. She did a lot of stuff early when it comes to like being a baby, and the first time she walked and the first time she talked. Like, she was one of those kind of early developer kids. But then when she got to school, I don't know, I kind of expected that because she talked early, she'd be smarter. than average or something. But she did really poorly in school, to be honest. You know, as soon as they started getting letter grades, she was bringing home D's and F's, especially in math. Like, it just wasn't, she doesn't learn, I feel like, the same way as a lot of kids do. She's been diagnosed since then with ADHD, and we're managing it and things of that sort. But this project has really helped her apply math to real life situations that she's passionate about, you know? So she needs to figure out adding and subtracting and dividing, because she doesn't get to keep all of her profits. She only keeps a third of them. A third goes into savings, and a third is donated to a charity, which she's allowed to choose where that money goes. But this is, you know, when she walks into Toys R Us, this is how much money she's allowed to spend. She doesn't want to get that math wrong. So she's turned those grades around. She actually brought home straight A's for the first time this year, which has been incredible. And we did check the name 3 times just to make sure it was really her report card.
How do you keep her interest? I mean, has she maintained the same level of enthusiasm about it? I mean, I guess I'm just feeling like a little kid like that would just like say, okay, you know what? I'm done with this now. I mean, but it sounds like she's really maintained an interest in growing her business.
It definitely ebbs and flows. So in December, she didn't really do much. We had a lot of other stuff going on, you know, with the holidays.
Sure.
Just picking an example. But she can always go back to it. And that's kind of what we've just encouraged her to do. So if she starts to complain about being bored or things of that sort, we remind her that this is something she can do. And she also knows she gets money from it. So that's motivating enough for her. And I think because it's books, it's also something that's going to be able to grow with her, because right now she's 10, she's interested in, you know, XYZ books, and she's reading and reviewing them. But next year, even if her likes and interests change, she can change the books that she's reviewing. You know, it can really grow with her. So it does ebb and flow for sure. But I feel like reading has been one of those things that's been so ingrained in our kids, because we do read to them very frequently, typically every day, but you know, nobody's perfect. So I think that she's just used to reading, and it's just that writing piece that she's had to add to it. And we actually have let her use Google Drive has like a tool where you can actually, I'm trying to think of what it's called, but you can speak and it transcribes your speech. So she'll go on, or we'll go on together, and like I'll ask her questions and she'll actually dictate what she wants the blog post to say, which helps her not get too tired of writing.
Wow, that's an awesome tip. I'm going to use that for myself. And I have 2 friends, actually. I'm going to make sure they listen to this episode, because one of them has a child who's interested in yoga instruction, and the other has a child who's bilingual, and her mom is developing a blog around that. So do you have like tips for parents who want to go in this direction, where they want to gently guide their kids into really creating something around their interests?
Geez, and part of the reason that I started, I don't want to take this too far off track, but that's part of the reason I started the podcast. I feel like there aren't a lot of really good resources, and I really want to explore it deeper. So I'm hoping that eventually I'm going to have those good resources. I just have to build them out. But as far as like getting started, like what we did, I would just be open and communicate with your kids. It's amazing. They are like little sponges, and I think it's easy to underestimate what they're capable of, you know, but it's so fun to me to just hear her tell people like what affiliate links are and how they work, you know, because there's adults who don't know, and it's totally okay, because not everybody needs to know that. But I try to just, you know, keep the door open as often as possible and really explain what I'm doing, so they know that I'm not just in here playing games on the computer, you know, because for them, that's what they think of. When they think of computers, they think of games. So explaining that what I'm doing is working, and this is how we make money. And, you know, I don't get into how much money I'm making necessarily, but as an entrepreneur too, income's not as predictable. Right. So there will be times where if we can't afford something, I'm just honest with her that, you know, it's not in the budget this month because we made I made less money, this month at work than I did last month at work. And that's part of the reason why I'm in my office and why I close the doors sometimes, because I'm trying to make more money. And she's starting to grasp some of those concepts. So I think in age appropriate ways, just keeping the line of communication open with your kids, because they pick up on this stuff and, they do understand it. And I love when somebody asks them, what does your mom do? And like I said, I'm multi-passionate. I've got a couple different buckets. I've diversified some of my income, but they'll typically rattle off one or two of the business names. And I don't know, I just think it's kind of cool, because even though I'm an entrepreneur and sometimes it's hard to think of yourself as a business, that mindset, mm-hmm. They don't doubt it, they just don't doubt it. So I think at this point, it's just keeping the communication open. I don't know of any specific resources that are geared directly for kids, which is why I decided to kind of try to build one out, a community where people can support other parents going through the same things.
Well, since you've started this, since your daughter started her business, you have kind of taken that experience and combined it with that work, and you've started the FamilyPreneur. Which is your podcast that features guests who are trying to integrate family and business together, much in the same way that you have. Can you tell us a little bit about how this is a relatively new podcast, but you're well on your way? You've had lots of great guests already. And what is your vision for the podcast? How do you see this developing in the future?
Yeah, I'm hoping to just continue to reach more and more entrepreneurs. Not everybody's a parent that we've interviewed. Some of our guests just have really great tips. They may be, experts in areas that parents could benefit from. But my goal is really to build that community of parent entrepreneurs. I feel like there's so many unique situations that we are encountering, that entrepreneurs who don't have children or parents who are not entrepreneurs don't face, So being able to explore some of those unique situations and challenges that we encounter and really learn and get motivated from other people who are doing things differently, not necessarily better, but differently, to explore whether those, may be worth trying in our own lives. So I'm kind of just hoping that the podcast evolves naturally. I mean, I really want to focus on this concept of raising entrepreneurial children. Not that I'm stuck on the idea that my kids have to be entrepreneurs when they grow up. I mean, if they decide to go to college and be a doctor, that's great. That's wonderful. But I no longer believe that that's the only way. When I was in high school, I felt like to be successful, you go to college, and that was just it, and then once you got there, I had my own ideas about which, professions would be the most profitable. But now I feel like that's not the best way to approach it anymore. So by giving them these entrepreneurial skills and experiences as children, I believe that we're paving additional paths so that when they finish high school, there's not just one path to college, and they either are on it or they fall off, and then they're working at a fast food restaurant, which is fine if that's what you want to do. Nothing against fast food. But I want them to have, 10 paths in front of them so that they can follow the one that they want to follow. And if it's college, great. If it's starting their own business or continuing their existing business or something of that sort, as long as it's legal, right, then I am in support of it. And I'm hoping that the podcast just continues to bring some really great guests and entrepreneurs, and we can build out a community and resources for other parents in similar situations.
Well, and I think that I absolutely agree with you as far as like the skills that your daughter and other kids and even anyone who's in the entrepreneurial world, these skills are really transferable to just so many different things, so it's really kind of the building blocks to something, and I think it's great to kind of tap into those interests and let them, see where they go. And I think that that's true for an entrepreneur, no matter where you're at in the process. Well, But I know everybody asks you this, but can you tell us if you have any special tips for how to manage all of the things that you have going on, as well as 4 children and a few businesses, plus all the other things you've got going on? How do you make this all happen?
So it's a combination of using my calendar to keep things organized and communicating things with my husband. Those are probably the 2 biggest things. So I'm keep tweaking and changing the way I'm leveraging my calendar to try to find the exact approach that works for me to make sure that I'm, meeting all my responsibilities and getting all my tasks done. But like I said, communicating things with my husband and really my kids too, I suppose. So I try to leave the door open as much as possible so that I can get work done and the kids are comfortable to come in here and be exposed to it. But letting people know, the door is going to be locked now because I have a phone call or I have a meeting. Mm-hmm. And those are things that the kids and my husband respect, when the door is closed for those reasons. And letting him know when I need help with something. And that's a big challenge that I had is I'm kind of a control freak. So I like to do everything myself. And I've had to learn to let go a little bit. So outsource some things to him and trust that he's fully capable of doing those tasks. Everything from making lunches and bringing the kids to school to, I don't know, folding laundry. Like he helps me a lot with the housework, which frees me up to pursue all of my entrepreneurial passions because I'm much more entrepreneurially driven than he is. So I think the calendar and the husband are how I'm able to manage as much as I am.
We love to share tips like that with our listeners. We talk a lot about organizing and decluttering things and physical objects, but it's also about how you manage your time. That's even even more important most of the time. So we here at KonMari, we talk also a lot about vision as well. And you were just talking about the boundaries and respect, and it comes with having somewhere to kind of ground all of your projects. And so in the case of decluttering, the vision is all about where am I going? What's the person I want to become? And so I'm curious, when you've got an idea and you're like, yeah, this would be a great business. What's your next step? How do you actually plan? Do you do a formal business plan? Or do you have some other techniques that help you kind of make that idea come to life?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I do a formal business plan. I do write things down. I'm a big paper, and pencil person.
Sure.
So I'll typically write down my ideas, and I have a very informal network of entrepreneurial friends. So I often run ideas by those people. Entrepreneurism, sometimes I feel like I make words up. Being an entrepreneur can feel isolating because, I work from home in my office with no other adults, and it doesn't really have to be, with the internet especially. I've got, like I said, a network of 3 or 4 really good friends, and none of them are local, but they're all on similar journeys where they're kind of emerging entrepreneurs, not quite, 6-figure earners or anything like that yet. And we're trying to figure it all out together. So often when I have a new idea, I will run it by them, and they're more than happy to take a look at, the structure of what that business or even that a course or something is, and get feedback from them. So it's almost like a mini market research, I guess, to see what people think about that idea. But I think typically if you're passionate about it, there are so many crazy businesses out there that if you're passionate about it, I really think you can make it happen. It's just finding the other people who are passionate about it like you are.
That's great.
Well, one of the things I really loved about your story and the work that you're doing is this idea of building a love for entrepreneurship and business and kids and within families. And it really kind of struck me when I was reading about the work that you're doing about how at one time having like a family business was a much more common thing than it is now. You know, you had a family store, you had, you know, a family craft or something that you all did. And it was something that was handed down from, you know, dad to daughters or, you know, so it was just kind of more of a common thing. And I still think that that's true today. We still have those kind of businesses, but it's maybe not as much as it used to be. But with what you're doing, it seems as though you're cultivating that we are all in this together as a family, and the money that comes in and the money that goes out is something that concerns all of us. You know, we're all here together, which I think is really great. You talked earlier about this idea of sitting down with your daughter and kind of brainstorming ideas until you were able to drill it down to something that you could put into practice. So do you have was that something that just came intuitively to you, or did you learn that technique somewhere? How did you pick up on these techniques for kind of getting that interest and that and bringing it to reality with your daughter?
Gosh, I wish I knew exactly. Because I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I'm sure I got it from somewhere. I feel like we've always had kind of a fun approach to parenting. And trying to give the kids more credit and as far as like what they can understand. So like one of my favorite parenting approaches or whatever that I've always taken with my kids is when they ask complicated questions, we turn it back on them rather than answering them. So like when my daughter comes up to me and says, "Is Santa Claus real?" I say, Do you think Santa Claus is real? And we hear what she says. Or when she came up to us and said, "Where do babies come from?" And I was like, oh, like I don't believe in lying to them. Mm-hmm. So I ask, "Where do you think babies come from?" And then we explore what they think. And I think it's been funny because typically when I asked her, like, the babies come from, she said they come from the belly and the doctor pulls them out, but I don't know how they get in there. Mm-hmm. I'm like, "Well, how do you think they get in there?" And she said, "Well, does the man put them there?" And I was like, "Yeah, kind of." So we just kind of rolled with it, you know? So we've always had like I don't know, I think it's a fun and interesting, maybe it's not super duper unique, but approach to letting the kids try to apply some critical thinking, you know, and figure things out on their own and then support them through that process. And I think that I've never really thought about it that way before, but I mean, that's how we approached things with some of those early questions we got more frequently when my oldest was little. Mm-hmm. And we're still kind of, I think it's related, you know, she wanted to make money and we just explored how it would be possible. So I don't really know where that came from. I'm sure I read about it or something somewhere. But I feel like it's all tied into that same general approach, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, Meg, that's, wow, some great tips you've shared for any parents and any business owners. And really, your website is just a further extension of the conversation. And your website is megbrunson.com. Mm-hmm. And what's really cool about your site is you have kind of culled together a great group of resources that anyone can use, kind of your tools that make you able to kind of do it all in a way, or as much as you can, and really keep that balance between business and family. Do you have any current favorite tools or apps or things that business owners can use to just make their life more productive and easier?
I think my favorite like web-based tools are a combination of Dubsado, which is a CRM system. So it organizes all of the people mm-hmm. that I interact with in my business. So for the podcast, those are my podcast guests. And for my marketing business, those are typically my clients and potential clients. So I really love Dubsado because it helps me keep everything organized. And then Acuity is a scheduling software that I use to schedule phone calls and in-person meetings and things of that sort. And it automatically integrates with my Google Calendar, which is where I put everything so that I don't double book anything, which is really important when you have a lot going on. So I feel like those are my favorite web-based tools right now, and both probably two of my newest things I've discovered too.
It sounds like the calendar is key for you there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's great. Wow. I haven't heard of those. So I'm going to check them out for sure.
Yeah, that was amazing. When I was on your site and I saw that page, it was like just so many different resources and so many that I had not even heard of. It was just great. I really, I thought it was very generous that you had gone into so much trouble to make sure that people could access those tools. But I did notice that one of them was wine.com. And so I thought that was very funny.
I do enjoy the occasional glass of wine at the end of the day.
For you, absolutely. So we ask all of our guests, what is sparking joy for you today? Yeah, and
I think it's my kids. I mean, it's not just today. I feel like it's this stage of my life, just the happy moments. We recently went to Disney on Ice, and it's an expense, and we make it work. But gosh, their eyes, their giggles, just having those moments where I can walk out of my office, for a 15-minute break or something, and play Paw Patrol with the kids on the ground, or I say jump on the trampoline loosely because I do it with one foot, because the trampoline's little. But play with the kids, and they love it. They love that one-on-one attention. So that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about entrepreneurship and, encouraging adults and parents to be entrepreneurs and encouraging kids to pursue that. It's given us so much freedom and flexibility to enjoy those moments with the kids and experience those things, going on field trips. And when they come to you and they're like, please come with me on the field trip. And to be able to just be like, okay, what is it? I'll make it work. No big deal, because I'm my boss and I'll give myself the day off. So just the kids, their smiles and their giggles, and it's infectious.
Yeah, that's great.
Oh, that's so sweet.
You can find Meg on her website at megbrunson.com. Her marketing website is EIEIO Marketing. You can find her on Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest under The Meg Brunson. Her Facebook is at Meg24. And Kiki's website is kidsoutandabout.com. Meg's podcast is FamilyPreneur, and we will be sure to put all of her details in our show notes, because you definitely want to check it out.
Thank you so much.
So now we want to hear from you. Tell us your burning, tidying questions, or share stories about how KonMari has impacted your life.
You can find us at sparkjoypodcast.com and click Ask Spark Joy to leave a question or comment for a chance to be featured on next week's show.
While you're there, sign up to join our Spark Joy podcast community and get notified when each episode airs.
You can also join the Spark Joy Podcast community on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at the handle at Spark Joy Podcast.
Thanks for tuning in, and we hope your day sparks joy.
Thank you for listening to Spark Joy with your host, Kristen Ivy of For the Love of Tidy in Chicago, and Karen Sochi of the Serene Home in New York City. Spark Joy, the podcast, is not endorsed by or affiliated with KonMari Media Incorporated. The opinions expressed on this episode represent the views of the co-hosts and guests alone and do not represent the corporate position of KonMari Media Incorporated or the KonMari consultant community.